Hello and welcome to another episode of Autogefuhl. Today with me, AJ and Jonas. On today's show, we're going to be taking a closer look at Cupra's first bespoke model, the Formentor. As you can imagine, the Formentor is on VW's MQB Evo architecture. So that is the same architecture and platform that underpins the Golf 8, the new Octavia, the Audi A3, and of course the Seat Leon. But like the Leon and the Octavia, the Formentor is on the slightly longer wheelbase version of this platform as compared to the wheelbases on the Golf and the Audi A3. Up front as well, this is very, very similar to the Leon, but there are a few small differences. For example, these vertical slats that you see here, as well as the fog lamps, which are really right below the front headlamp unit. Speaking of the headlamps, you do get LEDs as standard. However, you do not get even the option of matrix LEDs. Those are only reserved for the higher end of the VW portfolio. But I do like this aggressive front design. It's very different. I think Cupra is one of those brands which are not afraid to try new things. And I like that copper tribal art. It's like an alien logo, like a transformer or like one of those evil villainous alien characters from some movie or video game. I don't know, it just kind of reminds me of that with the carbon fiber kind of background. A very large open grille with this nice structure. A lot of glossy black elements. The Formentor is 4.45 meters long, it's 1.83 meters wide, and it weighs about 1,644 kilograms. That is in this 310 2-liter petrol engine version. I'll talk more about the different engine options and powertrain options later on. But like I was telling you guys earlier, this is a little bit of the longer wheelbase version, so you can expect a little bit more legroom in the back seat. Is that true? We'll take a look in a minute. Up front, first of all, you have McPherson strut independent front suspension, as expected, and you have multi-link rear axle as well. You have a very large ventilated and drilled brake rotor with this really huge copper-colored Brembo brake caliper. I like this color. It's got these copper accents. You can get some different wheel designs, including a very aero design, which makes sense for the plug-in hybrid versions. But this is 19 inches, has that tribal art logo right in the middle. As we go along the side, you see that we have wheel arches clad with the metallic finish plastic that we saw in the bumper, as well as down here near the side skirt. So overall, now this brings me to the next discussion point, and I need your help over here. What would you classify the Formentor as? Is this a crossover coupe, just a crossover, or would you even dare call it an SUV? Coming to the back, well, first of all, you do see that sloping roofline a little bit more prominently over here. And although it looks good, of course, you're going to be losing out a little bit of trunk volume because of this shape, as well as the window is not that large. Even though it might be sloping and along this way, the vertical area that you're going to be able to see out of is going to be quite limited. But I do like this spoiler at the top, as well as this long horizontal tail lamp which extends all the way across, LED with cascading turn indicator lights, more Cupra badging down here. All right, let's take a look under the hood. First of all, the hood itself is a bit heavy and you don't have gas charged struts. You got to do it the old-fashioned way. Nevertheless, right here we have the ubiquitous 2-liter TSI, the EA888 family of engines, which in this case makes 310 horsepower. And when I say ubiquitous, this truly is ubiquitous. We see this engine in the Golf GTI, in the Octavia, in the Leon, in Audis, even Porsche Macans have this engine. So it's a tried and tested, very strong engine. They even use this in their TCR race cars as well. Well, the block in essence. So first of all, ingress is not as tall as you would expect. Rather, while there is decent amount of space to get inside, it doesn't have like that Seat Ateca or Skoda Kodiaq or Tiguan kind of really tall SUV body like we talked about. So it's a little bit in between at the end of the day. Sitting inside, like I said when I sat in the Leon Cupra, it's so different. I love these copper accents. I know it's not to everybody's taste, but it's just so different and cool. You also have LED lighting all along the top. There's almost like this gorge or this canyon that envelops the front of the cockpit. Again, it feels like I'm driving or piloting some kind of alien spaceship. And Jonas, if you can look all along, the LED lighting also connects with the front, so it's pretty cool. I also like the way these air conditioning vents, the design is very similar to the front grille. And the haunches on the hood. I can see, because I put the seat all the way down, which is what I always prefer when I'm driving a sporty car. And I can see the haunches, and it's easy to see where the edges of the front are. I have plenty of headroom if I put the seat all the way down. I mean, this is cavernous, really. You do get the panoramic roof, where that would eat up a little bit more space. But in this car, there isn't, so plenty of room. But yes, I love the steering wheel. It's very interesting. So why don't you hop inside and we'll take a look at these systems. All right, let's take a look at the interior. First thing that grabs your attention is this new 12-inch infotainment system, as well as the 10.25-inch digital cockpit. This being the shift-by-wire DSG, of course, on the steering wheel we do have the paddle shifters. And as you can see, a lot of buttons to control the digital cockpit, a lot of buttons here also to control the assistance systems. The drive mode selector is directly on the steering wheel, which is pretty nice, and as well as the engine start-stop button. So a little bit Lamborghini-esque, or rather Ferrari-esque, excuse me, because I remember they also have a lot of buttons, including the engine start-stop on the steering wheel. Now, let's start with the digital cockpit, because there's a lot of different settings and views. First of all, in this view, you can toggle between different settings or different visualizations, like, for example, a map, the road signs, driving data, and so on. Or you can change the view entirely. You can have a more digital, squircle-shaped tack and speedo. You can have just like the assistance systems if you don't want to have any of those. You can have a more map-oriented view, a very minimal view. There's so many, in all of these you have so many different customizations. I mean, the list is endless, and this is where I start having a little bit of a problem. I mean, like, for example, on this view you can have so many different settings, the G meter. On this side you can change it to something else. Is it too much? At one point, I think it becomes a bit too much. And the reason why I say too much is not that it's not nice to have these options. It's just, it's too many things to fiddle with when you're trying to drive the car. And everything is operated and nested away in a bunch of menus. And that's where you are going to be distracted. You're not going to be paying attention. You have to, cycle through these different menus, find what you need, and then try to change it to what you want. And it's all... I'm just getting annoyed just talking about it. So, I don't know. What do you guys think? I mean, even the S-Class is now just all touch interface, and you can see there's no buttons anywhere. And I don't really like that. I think it's very important to have buttons. Not only is it easy to touch and feel what you're pressing and how much you're doing it, but if you have like toggle switches or, you can just touch that and you can know if it's on or off or which position it is in. Everything here is nested away in a bunch of menus. And again, there's so much customization. You can have like different tiles on the front home page, which I guess is useful because you're utilizing a lot of this real estate with maybe you have your map, your music, and your phone. Like, for example, that's what is on this by default. But again, for the air conditioning, you have to go into a separate menu. You have to choose how much of auto you want. Do you want level 1 auto, level 2, or level 3? I mean, I think it's a bit too much. And then 2 climate zones in the front, 1 in the back that you can control. There's a lot of settings that you have to go through. If you want to turn on your seat heater, you have to go to this menu, select the seat heating. There should just be buttons for at least the air conditioning and the volume. Speaking of the volume, you have to slide your finger across this system. And honestly, I found this, Jonas and I, we were trying to connect our phone. We were trying to turn the volume up and down. It's not intuitive. And you can tap, of course, but I really wish there was a knob for this. All right, let's take a look in the back seat. So as we can expect, unfortunately, the top part of the door is hard plastic. But still, at least the build quality is pretty good because, for example, an easy way to test this is put on a song with a lot of bass, turn the bass in the EQ all the way up and turn the volume all the way up and see how much your door panels start buzzing. And we tried this. This is a simple test you can do in your car and it did not buzz. So it's hard, but it's built pretty well. But you do have some plush materials over here, door pockets down there as well. Let's hop inside. So first of all, you see how large the opening is. It's a very wide opening, again, thanks to the slightly longer wheelbase that the Formentor has as compared to the Golf. Getting in is really easy. You have 2 ISOFIX points on either of the outside 2 rear seats. You also have ISOFIX points on the front passenger seat. So with this large opening, it's easy to get your child seats in. Again, because of the slightly sleeker roofline as compared to the Ateca, you have to bend a little bit, so you don't expect this to be the most SUV-like ingress. But that being said, plenty of knee room. This seat is set to my driving position. I'm 5'8" or about 1.73 meters. Headroom is ample. I also have a little 3/4 window right over here, so there's plenty of light. If you do get the optional panoramic roof, the light becomes even more. You do lose a little bit of headspace along this kind of like towards the outer edge, of course, as you can imagine, but it shouldn't be too bad. I would always prefer a panoramic sunroof. Automatic tailgate comes in handy when your hands are full. We're looking at 420 liters of boot space in this 310 2-liter petrol-only variant. You can expect a little bit less space when you have the hybrid, but it is a fairly rectangular space. The wheel arches don't impede too much, and even where they do, you have been given these really nice little wells where you can kind of secure away smaller items so they don't roll around. You also have a 230 volt power outlet, so you can charge or power, I don't know, maybe a compressor or some other ancillary equipment. All right, let's take the Cupra Formentor out for a spin. We found some gorgeous winding country roads, so I'm just gonna get onto that road and then let's test it. But first impressions, and I have to share this, is that this tech is a bit too much. It gets a bit overwhelming. Like, even though I've driven several different cars on the show, this is one of the few cars where I sat in and it took me more time, and I started to get frustrated with it quite quickly. There's so many settings, there's a plethora of options, and it's just, I'm not completely sold on this new user interface. But anyway, we're driving the 310 horsepower 2-liter turbo petrol Formentor. So there's really one thing that I really have to start with, and that's the performance. So as we get out of this little village, press and hold the Cupra button to directly go into Cupra mode, drop it into Sport, and then put my foot down. Wow. So the acceleration is very good, but you don't get that instant shove in the back like, you know, with like a plug-in hybrid or an electric car would give you, because it still is a little bit old-fashioned in the way that it's a petrol engine, but still that four-wheel drive system ensures there's plenty of grip and traction as you launch out in a straight line. 0 to 100 in 4.9 seconds. Remember that. That's a pretty good number. Also, this has electronic brake-based torque vectoring, so this prevents and controls any kind of torque steer or any kind of slip or understeer. And again, the progressive steering just works so well. I mean, this is not a new technology. It's been around for quite some time. So it really gives you exactly the amount of feedback, as well as it makes it seem so much more agile, this entire car. So what is a progressive steering, really quick, if you're not aware of this? So usually in a regular steering, it's more linear. So if you draw a graph of the amount of steering input you're providing versus the deflection of the angle of the steering of the wheels itself, it's usually a straight line. But in a progressive steering rack, it increases. So the rate of change increases with the more input you provide. And what that means is around the center, around dead center, the steering is a lot slower. I mean, overall it's a faster rack, but it's slower, so it gives you that finesse, that minute control that you need for winding roads like this. But as you get towards, you know, like let's say 3 o'clock or 2:30, then the rate of steering increases. So you never have to leave your hands from this position, and no matter what kind of a what kind of a bend you're approaching, you can do almost all of them by just never having to shuffle your hand. So this really makes it feel really sporty. The paddle shifters are nice and tall. They are mounted on the steering wheel and not on the steering column. So that means you're always ready to shift up or down. The 7-speed shift-by-wire DSG, the direct shift dual clutch transmission, is razor sharp, very instant. The pedal weight is also really good. So the throttle pedal also has a good weight. The brakes are also really well weighted, and it gives you so much confidence. Those big Brembo calipers and that big ventilated and drilled rotors are very reassuring. I'm going to turn around and head back on that same road just to get that coming back the other side. And this time we'll leave it in sport mode in terms of the gearbox, so I'll let it do its own thing. So the engine also sounds a lot nicer on the inside thanks to that sound actor, but of course the exhaust note on the outside is also really nice. You hear that turbo whine. It is a very engaging car to drive. This DCC also works really well. So in the Cupra mode, it's not just, you know, an on-off binary kind of damping, or it's not set damping rates. It's actually a dynamic rate. It's an adaptive rate. So it always changes. You know, if you're going into this corner now, this wheel gets a little bit stiffer. These wheels slacken off a little bit to also aid that anti-roll. So it's a continuously variable damping rate, and the program of how it gets changed is dependent on the driving profile that you select. So we saw that the Cupra Formentor shines when you want to drive spiritedly. It also becomes comfortable. It simmers down when you want to use it as a daily driver to commute to office. But what about when you want to go on a long highway stint on a road trip with your family? Well, let's test that out too. So I'm just joining the Autobahn now. Let's accelerate up to motorway speeds. So right now I can hear the engine quite a bit, and at 130 as well there is a little bit of wind noise. It's not too bad, and actually the tire noise is also really well controlled, so I don't hear too much of the tire noise, even though this has slightly bigger wheels and it has the sports tires. I can hear a little bit of wind, but it's not too bad. So overall sound insulation on the highway is pretty good. Also in the normal mode, the suspension with the DCC is really comfortable, so I don't feel any undulations, I don't feel any of the sharpness filtering in. I didn't feel that in the city either, so it really is a very good system which balances stiffness for sporty handling as well as softness for comfortable driving. There's also a lot of assistance systems, so I can turn on, for example, the travel assist, and now this of course combines the adaptive cruise control with the lane keeping assist, but it also has traffic sign recognition and it adapts to that. So right now it sees that this the speed has become 80 kilometers per hour, so it will automatically slow down to 80 kilometers per hour. It will maintain the distance that I set, a safe distance with the car in front, and also maintain me in the middle of the lane. And the system works quite well. So this is a much more upgraded or a better version of this technology. This kind of technology has come a long way in the last few years, and it's good to see systems like this continuously improving. They're becoming smarter. It's harder to confuse them. So it gives you that assurance that when you're on the highway with your family, you are going to be quite safe. Well, the price of the Formentor for the 310 version starts at around 44,000 euros. But if you add a couple options like the panoramic sunroof, you can reach numbers around 50,000 euros. But let's not forget, there's going to be the 150 horsepower TDI and TGI, or rather the TSI, with front-wheel drive and manual transmission, and we can hope for them to be a little bit more cheaper. So, what did I like about the Formentor and what did I not like about the Formentor? For starters, I like its personality. I like its demeanor. I like the way it looks, and I really love the way it drives. It truly has the best of having that crossover, practicality with a little bit more space, a little bit more upright seating position, but at the same time, it's low enough and sleek enough to drive and behave like a car. What I didn't like so much is the infotainment and the technology and all the gizmos and gadgets inside. It's a little bit confusing to operate. It can get frustrating, but you're just going to have to learn to live with it, I suppose. But let me know what your opinion is. And by the way, towards the end of the drive, I did manage numbers around 9 liters for 100 kilometers, but that's because I was driving with a heavier foot. And honestly, if mileage is what you're after, wait for the front-wheel drive diesel engines to come out, and then you can expect much better efficiency. But if you're out for performance, I think 9 liters, maybe 8.5 if you're driving with a gentle right foot, is I think a respectable number for a hot crossover such as this. So overall, I think it's a very interesting proposition. Let me know what you think. Put it down in the comments below. As always, thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.